Welcome to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy is a veteran U.S. Navy SEAL, a former protective officer for the CIA Global Response Staff, founder and CEO of the Able Shepherd Program, a husband and father of 4, and a personal friend of mine. Now here's Jimmy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. I'm your host, Jimmy Graham. This is BK. I haven't seen you in a bit, man.
It has been a while.
We have, just life has been happening. And yeah, man, how you been?
Jenny may not agree with me, but I wrote down 2024. The most traumatic, perhaps, depending on your lens, and yet the best year possibly of my life.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Right.
There's only one way. So, beyond thankful and grateful, have learned so many lessons. I wonder what 2025 is going to bring, because it only gets better. So.
Yeah, speaking of which, I'm looking at our deal. We've got a calendar back here because tomorrow we've got a meeting to plan 2025. So one of our goals at Able Shepherd is to plan the year out, at least roughly, get placeholders, because some of the stuff we do takes weeks. I'll talk a little bit about that, of my personal plans that we were just talking about. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Like, we haven't been sitting here talking for an hour and a half or two, whatever. You just came in, I'm like, I just want to sit down and we just catch up because we haven't talked in a while. But Spain, I'm really excited about that, so don't let me forget about that. And by January 1st, we want to have at least a layout. Now, it bit us last year because we threw out some dates, said, hey, save the date, but then we had to move them, and then it got messy. Because now people are like getting time off work, so we want to try to accommodate the best we can. And life happens, so.
It sure does.
We'll just, we'll throw them on there with, definitely want to, have another go at Men's Mission, the third one. Gathering has changed and become more of a gathering than a competition, and that feels better. It feels right, like it's supposed to be. And then my endeavor in Spain, which we'll talk about, and we're pursuing, an expansion. So there's just so much going on that's really, really good. But yeah, so there's that. It's good stuff. Like, bring it. Got an inauguration coming up. So it's crazy. There's drones, there's all that. I don't know how much I even want to spend talking about that. But I will say this, because this was on my heart today, and I was talking about this on a post. Careful of distractions. Yeah. Right? Focus on the things that you can control. I've got people calling me that are not calling me, I'm meeting them, and I get the honor. I get to meet with people that some of them are just in a bad way. Some of them are in a celebration phase. Some of them are just, fighting to get through the day kind of thing. And then my phone rings, or some other brothers are texting them, and because of the men's ministry stuff that's kind of ramping up. Some people are just so ticked off at Venezuelan gang members, drones, this and that they're not, like, all of that is second string to you being healthy. Yep. Right? Yep. And if you're not healthy, when I say healthy, okay, what does that mean? Jimmy's definition of healthy. Is it something sustainable? Healthy things grow, unhealthy things die. Are you a sustainable individual? Is it mentally, physically, spiritually? Are you healthy? Are you strong? Or is it something that other people aspire to be potentially, or is it at least sustainable and you're not taking other people down with you? That would be front burner to any of that other garbage. Because I think people, if they get distracted with that stuff, you realize that you've been so angry and distracted that you just haven't taken a second for your kids, for yourself. You don't even know where you're going if you die. Like, all this stuff, right? And all of a sudden it's like, okay, pump the brakes. Let's focus on something real and start there. So in this arena, meaning at Able Shepherd, men are very drawn to physical only. Physical, I want to be strong physically. That might mean shooting guns, lifting weights, jiu-jitsu, hitting those things over there. All of this stuff, knowing that's the least likely thing that you're going to encounter today. I said this the other day, and I mean it. I don't know a dude right now that's been in a fight in the past 5 years. Do you?
I do.
Who?
Well, my son.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Marine. That makes sense. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay.
Trained fighters.
Of men. Of our guys, do you know anybody really that's like, just out and about, mix it up, something happened, right? Other parts of my life, yeah, plenty, right? It's just been a while, thank goodness. Been in some high high temperature situations,
Yep.
but just not really worried about it, right? Articulate it different, not looking to go there with a chip on my shoulder, all of that stuff. Sometimes feel that heat rising and just being like, take a breath, handle it, right? And it's worked out. Don't shy away from those, but I don't look for them either, right? But that's the one that we're drawn to because it's cool and Hollywood says so,
Yeah.
you know? But the physical and spiritual, if they're in order, it's spiritual. Where are you going, heaven or hell? That's number one, right?
Gotta
And
know
your
that
spiritual
answer.
growth. And I promise you, you will fight, whether you know it or not, and whether you call it this or not, you will fight for your children's spiritual well-being today. All right? And it's late at night, and I'll be doing it tonight when I pray over them. And you will fight for their mental well-being and their strength and mental well-being this day. Right? Every single day, this is going to happen. In tactics, we call this definites and maybes. Maybe physically you have to protect them. You will definitely need spiritual and spiritual and mental. And the physical is way back here. Now, here's the kicker, because this isn't going to be a Mother Teresa service. This is going to be, if it comes to physical, you better be good at it. You know, in the book. Oh, we just published a book since the last time we talked about it. Hey, what's up, author?
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Very cool when God puts something on your heart that says, I think there's something that the world needs to hear that's inside of me, and then you get it out. That's kind of cool. You know, and to hold it, and there's something special about my son being on it, right? And we go into this, talking about that spiritual, then physical, spiritual, then mental, then physical, and if it does come time for violence, then employ it well. Like this isn't, you know, the other one where it's like, no, it's just a safer world now. Just stop, right? So there is a spot, it's a duty for men in particular to protect your family, period. And you need to be able to do that, and I would hate it if my kids ever said, I'm really scared, let's call somebody else's dad.
No.
That would hurt my heart. You know what I mean? It's like it just
Crushing,
would,
yeah.
right? So anyways, that's planning out this year and being intentional on more of that, you know, getting that lined out. And we're a little bit out of order here, not really
So
care.
let me take a second.
Please.
Thank you. Because I'm hearing what you just said, and I'm like, wow, I do have the capacity to listen, despite what some people might say.
We won't listen to names.
Because for Christmas,
Yeah.
Alex was gifted a very nice Bible to pair up with his Blackaby devotional.
Nice.
And another book, which I wrote a handwritten letter, basically saying, I want to spend eternity with you. Please see one of the previous podcasts with the 4 verses. Printed them out with check marks.
Wow.
I want you to check them all off. When you're ready, you sign. And mine was signed. I've made this commitment.
Wow.
I would like you to make it so we can spend eternity together. So
Yeah. Yes.
I feel
That's
like
so good, man. I can't think of a better present than that, right? Yeah. That's fantastic. I was telling somebody about this not long ago, that podcast, where it's like, you, and it's like, I'm coming for you. That was just, it was cool. It seemed right. And my men's groups, including the one last night, we were talking about that, you know, like deliberately. I'm 50 years old, and it's not a score because I'm not in charge of who goes to heaven and hell, but it is my job to pursue people and leave my comfort and ask them. And I can't be discouraged if I'm 50 and my number's not high. It's thousands, it's millions. No, it's not, actually. You know, I've had the honor of leading people into that, you know, that conversation that leads to their security eternally, and you can't beat it, right? But why isn't it higher? So it dawned on me last night, and somebody just texted me today and said, hey, explain this again. You said something about 1,000 touches, and what I meant was, when I said this, is if it takes 1,000 touches, we'll never know. It's just somebody mentioned this whole Jesus thing to me. And that was 1, and then it was 2, and then it was 3. And that person's number might be 1,000. They need to hear 1,000 times. I said there's honor in being number 342.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you got them one more. You have no idea, but like I tell my kids, not our job to save the world. It's already been done. It's our job to try. And it's like, okay, man, put me in, coach. So that was an honor. That was awesome. So I want to talk about more of like a situation report, Lubbock, Texas. Buddy of mine, JD Small, Pastor JD Small down in Lubbock, Texas, hit me up. And he's got a cool thing going on where he's got a thing called The Forge. And I know there's a movie out that was really good, actually. It's just a common name, you know. And I know that Dwayne Dieter, the first time I heard forging, that's how he would make his instructors that were At one point, SEAL team, the best of, they were training him, CIA, the best of, someday there'll be a book about this guy. He is a big deal. It's like some people think they're a big deal, and it was very true. Everybody wants to be the guy training the SEALs, and he was. And to hold that title for that long on the most stubborn dudes in the planet that know it all, it's impressive, you know what I mean? So, and the guy is very gifted with all of that, and a lot of what we're teaching now is rooted in many things that I learned from him. I don't know where I'm going with this, but J.D. Small used to work at Duty to Act LLC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was here, then he went there, and then he hit me up, and he's been following us, and he's got that was the forge thing. Forging is what they called making the instructors. You forge the instructors, because I mean it was crazy, and I could spend all night talking about what that entailed, but man, it just wore you out, it beat you up, it did all this, but you really, really proved to yourself that you trust this methodology of training. He's got a group called The Forge that does like 24-hour hikes with men, that does get-togethers. It does, I went to, I thought it was going to be like burning wood in a field, and it's like this very nice home. Whoever hosted it was doing okay, and we're standing in this kind of walled community. I mean, his house, his property, and with an indoor basketball, all this other stuff, and it's like gas fires, and there's just brothers hanging out. There was a wood fire too. That was cool. But then the next day, it's called Fight Club, and that was his the church's men's breakfast. And just sometimes it clicks. Like I enjoy all the times that I grow and I get to speak to hundreds of people, and while you're talking, it just kind of, there's a thing you get back. It's a two-way thing. You think it's a one-way, because you pay a dude to come down and talk, and you think it's one-way, but make no mistake, it's two-way. And when you see that many people of varying ages that are looking for something, they're on the edge of their seat, not kidding, edge of their seat, and there's a communication going on, And as I'm looking across the room and talking, it's just, you get stronger. Like within the span of, 35 minutes, you're getting actually stronger. Yeah. And then at the end, there's kind of that, thank you, and you come off the stage and you go outside and all that stuff. We're clearing the room for somebody else, and here they come, And now it's just awesome. It's so good to see, whether it's Lubbock, Texas, whether it's Milford, Maine, whether it's Missoula, Montana, whether it's wherever it is, I'm seeing the same thing. It's these guys that are they're not afraid to step. They just don't know where to put their foot. Yeah. And if somebody would go, they call it first follower. Yep. It's not the guy doing the thing, it's the first follower, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and all that stuff. Now there's a movement. And I feel like we're on the cusp of that, and somehow we're involved, and I just don't know, right? Yeah. And I just said this tonight, because I've said it 5 times this month, is I feel like God's building my resume for a job that doesn't exist yet. Yeah. And there's so much honor in that, and there's so much gratitude in that, and it's tiresome. It is. I mean, it's, right as we're filming, it's 10 o'clock at night, I've been working all day, been talking to you, and it's just good, and I dig it. I told somebody the other day, while I'm talking to these pastors about another thing we're doing in February, I'm the speaker out there here in Denver, like a 400 plated dinner, big thing. It's a big deal called Men Who Make a Difference. And if you're local, go to it, look it up, and be there, because there needs to be some kind of catalyst. Like, where's that spark, ignition, that group that we've got, ignition. It relaunches on January 14th, and then in February there's this big deal. My church is doing a thing on February 1st. There's all kind of stuff that's trying to ignite men, and now we're on the front lines of that, and it feels really good. And I've mentioned to these guys as I'm talking to them, that I feel like a groundswell, like something's happening, and it's an honor to be part of it.
Well, and explain the aha moment of, say, somebody who may be teaching inside a church, and yet what you're bringing to the table, and it's like, how about we go outside and study? Because I think there's a connection there that some of the pastors are picking up on.
Yeah, so, as I try to figure out this whole ministry thing and what it means for Jimmy Graham, I asked God. I didn't ask another pastor, right? And I think that, me, I don't do well with molds. Like, there's the mold, you follow the mold, here's the track. I said, success leaves clues, but sometimes they're not for you, right? They're for everybody else, and they're not for you. And it's not that I'm trying to be difficult to work with. It's not that I'm trying to recreate the wheel. I'm just, that sometimes it's just not right. It doesn't feel right. Yeah. I'm like, in my time in prayer, I'm hearing something different. And it just baffles me that Christian Graham at 10 years old I know he doesn't do well in a classroom in that environment. No boys do, whether they're 10 or 50, right? But we keep putting them back. Let's have a men's retreat. Let's go. And I did this. Let's go. I've been a part of this, and I've facilitated, and I try not to do this. We live in the Rocky Mountains, or very near. So let's get them up in the Rocky Mountains. But you know what we do? We go in the mountains and we find a classroom. And I'm like, what? What happened, man? So I do my best to let's get out of here, man. I mean, let's go out there in the rocks. Let's go out here. Let's go do this with 24 hours. Let's do this. Let's do motorcycles. Let's do trucks, all that stuff. But it means when I tell these guys this, no matter where I go, I say something about, I usually say who here's in full-time ministry, and I'll get 4 people in the room, and I said, let's try that again, because if you're a Christian man, do this right here. Now leave it up. Who here's in full-time ministry? Doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing or what. You are in full-time ministry, and you're ministering to people wherever you're at. And I said, I just happen to use the Rocky Mountains and AR platforms and pistols and motorcycles and four-wheel drives and, the Rocky Mountains, all of that. And why wouldn't you? If you're bored, it's your fault. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're, why would you ask permission from anybody but God? And I asked God, and He said it's okay. And then all of a sudden they're like, I want back in. It's let's go. Let's do this. Why wouldn't you do that? What if there's an element of danger? It's actually better. So that thing. I can't imagine working 9 to 5 and doing nothing. With all that's wrong in the world, you're not going to do anything that's right. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense to me. And when you say that out loud to pastors that are it's become a 9 to 5, walk around the church looking busy and do a woman's job. And I don't mean that it means if a woman can do it, it's not men's ministry. There's honor in what the women are doing and the men are doing, and there's logistics and all that stuff, but I told them if the women can do it, it's not men's ministry. If they're drawn to it and they're wanting to do it, and it's it doesn't matter who's sitting there, it could be me or it could be my wife, then it's not men's ministry, right? But Rachel's not really inclined to pulling a motorcycle off of you in a river. Yeah. I would love that opportunity, you know what I mean? I don't want you to crash, but I want to be there for you, right?
You have done it.
And you've seen me, I'll hurt myself getting to your bike. If somebody goes down, I want to be the first guy there. Why? I don't know. Because I'm not really fond of picking up heavy stuff anymore, right? Especially when I'm smoked too. That's what people forget. But I don't want you to hurt yourself, so I want to get over there before you have a chance. Because when you wreck, you're embarrassed, and you'll jump up, and that's when if you're not hurt now, that's the most dangerous spot. Because now pride comes in. You feel like an idiot for dumping your bike.
Adrenaline.
Yeah, and your bike's got 9 days worth of gear on it, so it's not a dirt bike. It's a freaking adventure bike, 1200, and it's got a BMW 1200 GS, and now it's loaded out with all this gear and extra fuel and all that stuff, and it's no joke. And if you do it wrong,
and it's underwater.
Yeah. And if your back's out of alignment 1 degree and you go to lift, and now here disc slips out sideways or something, it's just that kind of thing. But with 2 dudes, it's not going to happen. It's hey brother, on 3, ready, 1, 2, 3. We get it up, boom, and go. So it's like a race, and I'm not trying to beat anybody. I want to beat you, hurting yourself.
Yeah.
And guys have done it for me. And there's something in that it's much bigger. That thing of take care of one another is very tangible when you're standing there in Death Valley and dudes are getting, heat exhaustion,
Busted up.
Yeah.
And
we're borderline about 911 it, but we figure it out, and then get going. And you remember that, right? It means something. So anyways, tapping into Texas or wherever I go, and Maine comes to mind too, very similar, burning some wood and sitting there at a fire, and now somebody brings up, the important things, and now you're going deeper with these strangers than you've done with most of your family.
Yeah.
And now it's real. And now guys afterwards are coming up and pulling you offline, and it's police, and it's this and that. And it's man, there just hasn't been this conversation. I've been with the department this many years, and I've never had one conversation. Why not?
And I feel not? What I hear is they're passionate, and they're deep, and they're emotional, and they're available, they're open, they're vulnerable. And I'm basing this off on the first mission in Texas.
Yeah.
The BDRs, the countless intro to BDRs we've done, and then the 2 missions, or the mission you had out here last summer. People are changed.
Oh yeah.
At a foundational level.
And we're still in touch, and it's we don't want to be that. You don't want that thing to, and I never want the thing to be that was a fantastic weekend, and then it lasted till Wednesday. Yeah. And now it's business as usual, and it just didn't happen. I was just texting some pictures to our brother Darren, because he remembers what it was like to be in that water and then come popping out of there when we did our first cold plunge baptism. Yeah. Legit. Yeah, so the first time in Texas that you're talking a couple of years ago at that Walking in Truth Ministries, there was something real that happened there. Me and Danny and Mike and some of those other guys that just really had a very real experience, and then coming back where it's like the more you see, the more you want to do. Something was unlocked to me, and on the way back with Danny that I didn't know well now, and now he's a lifelong friend. I feel like we're supposed to do one of these. He's like, me too. I was just thinking that. So if I start down that road, you in? I'm totally in. And now there's been 2 under our belt, and the first one was a hit. The second one was even better.
Yeah.
And the third one will be even better. Like that kind of thing. And we were talking about this earlier. Is when you have the courage to go into a room, you see more doors, right? And then you enter that room and do the work in there, but then you see more doors. Next thing you know, you're 15 rooms deep, and there's still dudes out there saying somebody should clear the house. And you're like, well, frickin' welcome to the party, brother. and it's not like judging them. It's just like you never had the courage to walk in the first door. Yeah. So you haven't seen all these rooms, and they're so good. You know what I mean? And then you start seeing something, because I know, and I get this all the time, and I understand. I totally understand. So I don't want to sound like I'm preaching at anybody, talking at anybody, pointing at anybody, poking anybody in the eye. But when you aspire to do something like protect children with firearms and all the legal garbage and the liability and all that stuff that goes with that, because you see a hole in tactics, you head into that room and you say, okay, I want to get a bunch of guys and I want to teach them how to do this. And Heart for Men, I want to just pursue those guys. And then you see something more important. You get in there and you think that's what you want to do. I want to have a training center that teaches these guys how to do this safely, teaches men to be men. But then once you aspire to do that, you realize that half of these guys don't really believe they're men. Yeah. And you're like, this is way more important. So people are like, oh, I think he lost his passion for his thing. It's like, no, I just grew. Yeah. And when I grew, I realized the priorities aren't right. That this guy wants to shoot a gun when really he needs to quit believing lies. He's not a man, and he needs another dude to tell him. So now you tell him, and then you see him come up a little bit, and you're like, and this is, I believe I put this in the book, but it all kind of blends together. I know I said at the last speaking engagement was, we need to get healthy, and then we need to get busy. Yeah. In that order. Because if you're busy leading and you're not healthy, I've just heard so many stories of just SEAL peers and all that stuff. They come out, they give a talk, and it's a nightmare, and they don't ever want to see him again. I'm like, that's not good. So you kind of found a shtick that would pay you once, and if you get enough of them, you can make a living. And it's like, that's not doing good things for our community or for you personally or for those dudes that you're just ripped off, right? So it's not playing that game. So being in a place where you go in there and now you've got 150 new friends. And Jordan Peterson expresses this beautifully and he gets emotional about it, and I get it. And I'm nowhere near that. I'm not even claiming that. But when he goes in there, he's like, can you imagine being you, trying to be the best you that you could be, and in doing so, you might have saved that dude's life? Yeah. Like, what do you do with that? It's like, I'm just a dude trying to make it from breakfast to dinner like anybody else, but me doing that somehow helped you. Yeah. In droves, and whatever people think about that dude, he's onto something, man. Because, and I wanted to talk about that later, but we can go ahead and jump into that if we want. Yeah. Is that Peterson Academy? There's 3 right now, and I don't know if we can link this together, if it's you or Tyler or whatever, if we can put those links in here, because I challenged my guys, meaning the guys in 3 of the groups that I'm in, to there's 3 videos that have really impacted me lately, and they're all YouTube videos, and one of them is it's Love and Respect, Part 1, then Part 2. So it's both of those. What is his name? Eggert? It's a very unique name. Anyways.
Like Eggerich or something
Eggerich,
like that.
Eggerich, yeah. It's fantastic. And I've read the book years ago, so it's like, I've heard it. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. This he's fantastic on the stage. And if you have a spouse, it is mandatory that you do this. I'll challenge you to do this like I did my guys. I challenge you to watch Part 1 and Part 2. Thank you, by the way, Jordan Langdon, who assigned me this. Yeah. Watch these and watch them 3 times. Okay, Jordan, I don't think you understand how thick this dude is. I'm going to watch him like 6 because it's so much in there that I can't even unpack it. So I challenged my guys to watch those 2 videos and a particular interview with Jordan Peterson. But I said, have you guys seen this? Yeah. We already watched them, Jimmy. Are you doing any of it? No. I challenge you to watch them until you start doing it. Yeah. Like watch them back to back, because this is what happens in our culture and with churches too. You go on Sunday, and this is where this came out as I was leading my Monday group, watching the Sunday service. So I go to church, do the thing on Sunday with the family, and it was fantastic. But then I'd watch the same one, first it was Jack Hibbs, and then it was Jeff Shores and Traub at Brave, both pastors and spiritual leaders of mine. and I would watch it again, and I'd get more out of it, and I would take notes. And there'd be all these amazing notes, Word of God kind of like for Jimmy Graham stuff. And next week there'd be another page, and another one, and another one. And what I found, what that told me was like, any one of these pages is gold.
Yeah.
And if that's all you had in your life and you fully committed, you'd change the world.
Yeah.
But we turn into, well, what do you got next week? What do you got next week? And it's like, brother, do the thing from last week. That would be a great start, actually. So this stack of gold that I'm not committed to. So then when I saw that there was so much information in part 1 of Love and Respect, part 2 of Love and Respect, and then this article that I'm going to talk about in a second, is that I can't even unpack this in the first pass. So we're going to go through it until I start doing it. Well, when you do something like that, last week, and it's been a couple times actually, when I applied it, and this particular one was listen until Rachel actually gets around to the real problem, right? Because what would happen is, and this is Jordan Peterson talking now, is that she might share like a snake. He uses the visual of a snake. A small snake to see how you handle it. Well, how we would handle it is she would show like a small, she would expose a snake, and then I would try to kill the snake. I'd be the fixer, right? Yeah. Well, every time I fix her, it implies that I think she's broken. Now, that's not what I meant. By the way, that's not what she meant. And it's like, okay, well, I was just trying to help. She wants me to be the guy that handles problems, because who wants to be the guy that can't handle problems? But I thought I was doing a good thing. She kind of wanted me to do it, but that wasn't even really the problem. So she showed me a small snake, and I tried to kill it, which wasn't the right thing, so she's never going to trust me with a big snake, which is until we get to the real problem, we're just going to spin. Yeah. So they both talk about the same thing with different words, and something about the way of each one of these speakers, the way they say them, I can't get enough of it. Yeah. Yeah. It's not like it's boring watching it the 6th time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed that.
You pick up something else each time.
It's insane, right? And it's not me, it's the world, because for some reason, like I said, I can't think of another psychologist that I'll even hit play on, much less search out the next thing, right? And people are like, well, he didn't claim he was a Christian. This guy's leading more people to Jesus and the Bible than probably any pastor I can think of right now. Well, maybe that's not true, because there are some just heavy hitter dudes. But I can't see, and I've heard pastors say this, why are you quoting Jordan Peterson so much? And I think a better question would be like, why am I not quoting you? It's like, I'm like, guys are on fire for their life and doing good things and all that. And if he ever says anything I disagree with, as a grown man, I say, I'm not going down that road, right? So it's not like, I don't know, we just had a complaint about, not a complaint, but a comment about like, why aren't you using Christian music on all your stuff? What kind of Christian's done? It's like, shut up, just shut up. And it's like, what are you doing, guy that does nothing? Like if you look at my calendar, it looks like a bag of Skittles, man. I don't even know where I'm supposed to be right now. I think bed. But it's like this, we're doing so much, and I'm not complaining, I love it. But if you're not doing something, one thing that's really helpful is if you shut your mouth, right? It's just at least so I can get back to work.
Well, and I think that Jordan Peterson, there's a bigger message, or a 2025. Here's what's coming, almost like a subscription or an academy.
The academy, right. Yeah. So then that's what I wanted to talk about is like, and out of necessity, and I want to hear from people in this community if this is something that you would be interested in, is that he created the Peterson Academy about the time that I've got a 16 going on 17-year-old looking for, like, what are we going to do with universities? Like there's a couple of universities we're very interested in. They're Christian universities, and I'm not even entertaining for 5 seconds a non-Christian university, right? Yeah. So there's some great ones out there, and talking to our daughter Rebecca and seeing what she wants to do. But all along comes this thing, and if you watch the trailer, I just pulled it out in the parking lot and showed some dudes last night when we left our group discussion. The Peterson Academy, in a nutshell, he got canceled. If you understand that in Toronto and all this stuff, where they're trying to go after his license and all that stuff, but in the university for doing what's right. They're like, you don't tell me what to say. And not only you're telling me like you can't say this, you're telling me what I must say. So he stood for that, and he was right. And I love that he boldly stood. He didn't ask permission. He said, and he'll die on that hill, right? But he didn't die, right? He almost died, but he didn't die. By the way, that's the price of admission for anything great, is going right to the line and not dying. So he did that, and now the world knows his name, and he's packing out theater. I heard he's doing another one, and I'm interested in going, because it's just, he's on fire, and he's walked through the fires, come out the other end, and now he's like, okay, now I'll show you how to do it too. So he went, as I understand it, to the greatest minds he could find, and said, what is the class you've always wanted to teach? Like if you could teach one class in your life, what would it be? And if I paid you a bunch of money, like made it worth your while and treated you, you're a genius, so you should have been treated like this by the universities, but you weren't. You treated horribly. What if we treated you really well, like we wanted you to come back, treated you that good, and we paid you so much that maybe you're financially independent, you don't need them? What would that course be? And this is a dream for anybody who teaches. What if we gave you the people that really wanted to learn? They just wanted to be there and were clinging to what you had to say because they want to be better, which is, like I said, a dream to teach to go back and forth with that two-way conversation for any instructor or teacher. And then my favorite, he ends the trailer with saying that he was canceled by the universities, and the least he could do is return the favor. And I'm like, I love it! So basically you've got some of the greatest minds this world has to offer. I mean, like classes on Christianity, classes on, the Gospels, classes on Sermon on the Mount, classes on the boy crisis. I'm very interested because that was a fantastic book on the attack on young men due to my calling in this world. So things like that. $500, if I understand it correctly, $500 a year, all you can eat, as much as you can absorb, and they're going to put new curriculum up by collegiate classes that you do not want to hit pause on. 3 of them per month, which I couldn't keep up with this life. But it might be me and you going just because we want to learn. We just want to be better men, and we just want to, be educated. But there might be 2 teenagers that are doing this as college. They're going through. This will be accredited shortly. They're going to get accredited. They're going to take tests online. They're going to do all that, and now they're doing job placement. So as a father who just loves his kids with all his heart, are you kidding me? Like you're not going to send them to the go broke lifestyle of, what is it? You're sending your kids off to Caesar and you're complaining when they come back Romans. It's like, that's the deal, man. Yeah. Like that's what it's turned into. It's broken, 100 times over. And then we keep funding this broken garbage that's going to, try to undo all the things I did. Rachel and I aspired to do some things, and now you're going to have somebody that's in an authority role. For my daughter, trying to undo what I spent a lifetime doing, negative.
Not going to happen.
Right, so let us know if you're in this area and you would consider, because we're pursuing an expansion, and when we go to that, we're going to have classrooms, and if we have classrooms, I'm not sure why we wouldn't host. I bet the first one will either be Sermon on the Mount or it will be the Boy Crisis, and I can't imagine anything better than doing that with a group of people that wanted to do it. Yeah. So roughly an hour of curriculum, an hour of discussion. And I don't like homework, so we handle it right there. Before you leave here, let's fill this out. Maybe it's online test, maybe it's discussion, maybe it's whatever, but then see you next week. Yeah. And then do it till it's done, and then launch the next one, right? And if you've got young people that are looking to do this for college credits, then they're invited too, right? Because I was talking to somebody about aspiring to build this thing, and I'm like, why wouldn't my daughter be learning what work is like right next to me? Why wouldn't my son work right next to me? For their first job, whether it be selling gear, whether it be doing this, where it's teaching firearms or watching me teach, how do people interact all day, every day? It used to be a common answer was, how do you know how to do that? My dad taught me. Yeah. Now it's like I YouTubed it. Or some frickin' convict taught me because he couldn't get a job and we're both working at Taco Bell and he's actually selling me crack. It's like, this is not a good formula.
No, the kids come here and they're around responsible faith-based adults learning the right way to have conversations, to establish relationships, to conduct commerce. It's a beautiful model.
Because we saw this model, and I explained it. When I was out at this last thing in Texas, it's a big deal when you're standing around with a cup of coffee and a hand in your pocket, and a little 6-year-old walks over and looks at all the men with his hot chocolate. He puts his hand in his pocket, spreads his feet a little bit. He's like, okay, this is how you do it. This is how we be a man, right? So when I see this garbage. There's a frickin' show called Red One. Have you seen it? It's the new Christmas movie this year.
Christmas movie. Yeah.
I'm like, why is it? And it's a kids movie about Christmas, and they're cussing, and I just don't understand. No. Like, you can't be decent on a kids movie for like why is it? What's the purpose of it? And be like, what's the big deal? It's a way bigger deal than you think. I know that. It's a way bigger deal because we're on decency, and The Rock's in on it, right? And it's a cute kind of thing and all that. They just happen to be like cussing the whole time. So it's like, what are you doing to my kid, man? What's going on here, right? So I know it's my job to teach him better, and I am, but what's the attempt? Like you want to walk over and cut my kid, and I don't have a sense of humor about that, right? No. So you need to back up. I'm fired up. Okay. Speaking of which, there was just recently a Christian school shooting.
Oh goodness, yeah. Wisconsin.
And that breaks my heart every single time. I take them personally.
Yeah.
Because of what we do, and what really hurts, I think, the most is that it doesn't really register like it used to. It used to hurt the nation. Now people are like, oh, that's so
Another
sad.
one?
Anyways, Taco Tuesday, what's going on? It's just right back to life, as if 2 kids aren't dead, as if several kids aren't dead. And then I heard this recently on a podcast I was listening to, maybe this morning. There was another one a couple weeks ago, and it was in California, and it never made the news, and nobody heard about it. Why? Because of the motive. It was a Muslim person ticked off at Israel, so you won't hear about that one. And you're like, this is so broken, and I pray to God it gets corrected through some of these drastic changes that are coming to where the term, and this was a song back when we were younger, back to good. Yeah. That can we get back to good? Yeah. And I pray that we can, because when people say that we're too far gone, there's nothing you can do, I quickly say, what I'm hearing you say is my kids aren't worth fighting for. And they immediately go, no, I didn't say that. That's exactly what you said.
That's what you said.
Try again, right? And it's like, okay. A better statement would be try to keep up, right? Try to keep up. I'm going, you're invited. If you want to sit there and complain, then sit there alone and complain, because you're in the way. Okay, even that leads into, we say, ask wise questions, say true words, right? And there's so much going on with that. And once you kind of pre-program your mind to do that, like you start doing, we call them flashcards. It means those easy things that you can default to, especially when your temperature's up. If somebody's in your face, or you're doing this or that, or it starts getting emotional, and you start losing control. Is there something you can say? And I was just talking to Lou about this, because we say this all day, every day now. It's like, I'm not in charge of them, I'm in charge of me. Not in charge of them, I'm in charge of me. It sounds juvenile, but man, it'll get you right back to where you need to be to actually think before you go ballistic, or before you're even like blood pressure goes up. Like, okay, you can do whatever you want. I'm not in charge of you, I'm in charge of me. Like, they can, do you believe what they said? They can say whatever they want. But so can I. Yeah. So this one I'm gonna say, you're trespassing and you need to get off the property. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're like, look at this dude. Like this is a term that we should aspire to be, calm in conflict, right? And I've blown that, and I've gone to jail for that. It's just gone sideways, because I didn't know. I just didn't know. Dad didn't teach me. Why didn't he teach me? Because he didn't know, right? So we are teaching a class on this now. We've actually got a curriculum on this, and I taught it for the first time last week. And it went very well, and I had people walk up and say, thank you so much. I was never taught that. Yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about, and I want more. Can you coach me on this, right? So being able to do that, one of the things I'd like to submit, because I've heard this 3 times this week, is the word triggered. This makes me crazy. Like, it triggers me. I'm kidding. And it doesn't make me crazy. It just means the fact that we are being manipulated should kind of get everybody's attention and say, no. Like, and this is a great one to remember. Your lies don't live in me. So you can say whatever you want, but your lies don't live in me. So I'm going to go do productive stuff. I'm going to go true stuff. You're trying to distract me. I don't appreciate it. And I think, was that what's the golf one? Happy Gilmore? Yeah. I see what you're doing and I don't like it. So why don't you get on my face before whatever, like that thing, before I put my foot in your mouth or something. That should be the mentality. So when you hear people, there's actually a list, and it came out, about trigger words. Oh, one of them was brave. One of them was American. One of them was, well, you might trigger somebody. And it's like, it implies that there's a word that can make me not be responsible for me. Yeah. Like you saying that word, it's kind of your fault that I stabbed you, because you said that word, and then anybody would stab you. It's like, no, self-control is actually an attribute of fruit of the Spirit. So if you controlled yourself, the whole concept of, well, he made me mad. No, he was just being him, and you chose to be mad. Yeah. And I know that takes a very mature approach, but there's literally society, and I don't think it's an accident, I think it's government as well, trying to push in that direction. And I'll go back to this, and I know it's been said before, and you know this, is that scene from Lioness, where it was, they want the region destabilized. Yeah. Like they were trying to destabilize the region. And whether it's intentional and it's planned, or if it's just, the evil powers that are working in this world, trying to destabilize this country. And it's in full force. Yep. Because why? Because if the agenda is a broken America, it fits. All this makes sense all of a sudden. So if they're trying to break it, and this is a left trick from the beginning of whenever, is let's make a crisis so we can be the solution.
Yeah.
So let's, a moral and just people don't need a big government.
Yep.
Right? So if we were moral and just, we could reduce the size of the government. But if we're not, if we believe this racism garbage that triggered that I'm no longer in charge of me if you say those words, like all of these things, then we need a huge government. And that's where they're headed. That's exactly what they want. They want job security, and they want people that are yes men and women. And you know this. So if you're watching this podcast and you work for the federal government, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so does your wife, by the way. That you'll never be at a thing, that you'll never be a world changer, you'll never be at a Pride Fest drag show where they're exploiting children and tipping them for money and getting them to dance and all that. You'll never be at those things on the steps of the courthouse where you're praying and you're doing all that. Why? Because your pension.
Yep. Right?
Because you're in it. You're in there. Like, hey, careful. And I've heard people say this, and I'll remember it to my dying day. Careful, Jimmy. You can't go to those things. They'll pull your clearance. And I go, it's their clearance. They can pull it whenever they want, right? But you don't tell me where to stand.
Yeah.
Right? So that's exactly where I'll be because I want to see what's going on. And if you want your clearance back, it's yours to take.
Yeah.
But you don't tell me where to stand. So that's the thing that I think that needs to wake up in men, and I think it's happening all the time. Women, I'm not excluding you. I'm just not called to pursue your heart. There's one woman I'm called to pursue her heart. Yep. Actually, there's about four. Right? So it's like I got 3 little girls, and then I got Rachel Graham, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Right? And I want to talk about that before we close. I want to talk about that because we talked about it, and it started getting warm right here. So it's getting dusty in here, and I was like, this Camino thing is getting bigger and bigger, and I appreciate any kind of support that many people, including yourself, known for years that I've been planning and saving up for this thing. If your household's like mine, to where I'm pursuing a dream and I'm kind of funding this whole life, Rachel and I have partnered, and she is investing all day, every day in the kids. She now works also at the school, so she's with them all the time. Yeah. I'm not, right? I'm not. And that kind of hurts, that kind of stings, because I guess I just always thought it would happen maybe sooner, Not complaining, wouldn't change it for the world, but it's worked. Yeah. It dawned on us that she wanted to raise babies. Like when you have those young conversations, she's like, I want to raise babies, man. I want to love on them, and I want to be the one. I don't want to send them off to school. I want to, all right, send them off to like a babysitter and all that. I want to be the one. And I said, I want to train like the world. I don't even know what that means. I just want to make people better. I want to make them more capable. And then you kind of like we've kind of got it, like I'm training full time all these thousands of people. You've raised these amazing. We've raised, and what I do funds it, and what you do is our heart. One of us must be with them. It's unbelievable, but part of it starts stinging when you get a 16 going on 17-year-old, and it starts dawning on you that she's not going to live in your house forever. Mm-mm. And you're like, ooh. So a couple years ago, this made a decision that we're going to go to do the Camino de Santiago. If you haven't seen this, if you know what this is, go to YouTube and type in Camino de Santiago and watch thousands of videos. It's a pilgrimage walk that pilgrims used to travel hundreds of miles to visit the remains of St. James. I'm not Catholic, and if you are, good on you. I don't pray to men or women ever. I pray to Jesus. That's just me. This isn't a Catholic thing. There is a kind of religious component to it. We will start every morning with a devotion. Yeah. We're not planning it, like over planning it, but we will start with that. And in the evenings, I'll kind of interview them, right? So that's kind of like where we're going with this. I don't even think we're making reservations, because the part about the reservations is if you make a reservation, you're kind of locked into a timeline, schedule, right? It's like, this is the most beautiful town I've ever seen. Why don't we stay here for 2 days? That's back on the board when you have reservations, right? What's also on the board is you might not have a place to sleep. You know what I mean? Now, they've been doing this 1,000 years. You become a pilgrim, you get a shell, you put it on your back, you get a passport that they stamp. It's just like a very informal, every place has a stamp, and when you get to Santiago, Spain, they're gonna pull this out. Like literally the office, that's a legal place, you go in there and they check and they go, yep, he's been walking for 250 miles, so is she, and they sign a document written in Latin that's thousands of years old, noting that you are a pilgrim of the Camino de Santiago, right? Yeah. And they'll have this the rest of your life. Not just the document, Compostela, also the passport with all the stamps. Also, I'll have it framed out in pictures from this whole thing, and we're gonna have video of it. Yeah. But the most important part is there's just conversations that I planned on having. There's things I planned on teaching, and I haven't done it. right? So now, for over 2 weeks, the agenda will be wake up and walk west. There's nowhere to go. You're stuck with this guy, right? And I'll have a 17 and a 15-year-old, and we will go on an adventure, and we will have issues, and we'll figure them out. And there will be problems, and we'll solve them. There'll be conversations, and there'll be tears and all that. And I'm really looking forward to it.
I can't wait to hear the report, if you will, because I wish my memory was better. This was one of the first video podcasts we ever did with Al Payne and Steve Klein.
Yes.
2 parts about the walk.
Yeah, I just talked to Al about this, about sitting down again, because now I'm in planning phase right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're buying shoes, we're breaking them in, we're backpacks for Christmas. They've got some things that pertain to this, and it's go time. I just went in and after church and had them stand there at Walgreens and get the photos for the passports, and now the 27th we've got an appointment. So getting the, all that stuff. One of our goals, Rachel and I, was that they get out of the country, they see another culture before they hit college age. Because I know too many college kids that they're going to tell you about the world and they know nothing about it. Nope. You're like, I'm going to fix the world. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, good luck with that, right? So the gratitude of seeing another country and then coming home, it's hard to explain.
Changes you.
Yeah. So, it's good, man. And they are. They're just they blow my mind. They're amazing young ladies, and I want to introduce that thing that was that adventure thing, that hook that was sunk into me many years ago, and they deserve it.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. All right. Anything to add, my brother?
No, this has been wonderful and fantastic, and I'm so looking forward as we make the turn into 2025 to see this as it always does.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll fill that up tomorrow. So it's going to be like a
podcast episode, the green pen episode, right?
Yes.
There's green pens up there already.
Yeah.
If you don't know what it is? Go back in the archives.
Yeah, you got to look it up, and then, please check out the book, because I guess this is the first one since the book got released, right? So
yes, it is.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. So please check it out. The Return of The Return of Man, America's Only Hope is in our original hope. And it's me and Tyler talking for a long time, and this started off, it was Steve Klein, it was Kate Dalby, it was all these, it's just that message of God's like, there's something in you that I'm telling to you, and I need you to say it to them, right? So my son deserves a better interpretation of what I thought a man was at 25, and what I believe a man is at 50 is almost opposite, right? And the world is pushing this identity that men are chasing, and too late in life they figure out that it was smoke and mirrors, man. The problem is the guilt that's tied up in all that stuff, right? So at one point saying, I made a conscious decision to say that everybody that I meet will be better having met me. Yep. Have I got that perfect? I have not. But I really go out of my way to make sure that people, whether I'm holding the door for somebody, where I'm saying please and thank you, sir and ma'am, where I'm stepping into kind of harm's way because this isn't right, it's intentional, right? And many, many people's lives have been better. That means my life has been better, right? And that's just the earlier you can figure that out, the better. Yeah. And some men don't survive that. The prisons are full of dudes that were chasing the wrong thing. They didn't know it was the wrong thing. Yep. And I heard this come up in conversation with our guys. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying, it's like, well, guy got in my face, and I'm a man, so stop. You're a man. What did that mean, right? It means, this is one of the things in the curriculum. Silence is better than saying something stupid. I'll say that to men, and with kids I say foolish, but I'll say it to men, something stupid, because usually, and I've seen this within the month, where people say something totally stupid that's not true, that they don't even believe, because they didn't have time to think and they wanted to look tough. And I'm like, whoops, because it backfired and everybody saw the truth. That saying strong words is it's no substitute for real strength. So let's figure out what that is. That's
go to Amazon and buy the book.
Yes, go to Amazon, type in The Return of Man, type in Jimmy Graham, it'll come up. Let me know what you think. So it's a cool endeavor. I highly recommend that everybody write a book, even if you don't publish it, about you. Yeah. Like going through and really, really search and say, what are the lessons? If you had I don't even know, it's maybe 12 chapters, I have to look at it again. If you had this many chapters to say something, what would it be? Much like the Jordan Peterson, if there was a class you could teach, what would it be? right? If there was a message that you could give to the world, what would it be? And maybe there's 12 of them. And maybe they tie together at the end. And maybe doing that will cover you in gratitude, or it'll frame this thing up and you're like, oh, this is actually a success story. Yeah. You know, it's not this tiresome blah, blah, blah. And when you're writing it and you're just in tears. And then your pastor from Maine, what's up, brother, Pastor Frank, hits you up and said, you got me again, brother. I'm crying my way through chapter whatever. And I'm like, hey, I was crying writing it, you know. And it's just so good, and it is strength. It is strength, you know. So that, again, spiritual, then mental, then physical. And men would prefer it the other way. It just doesn't work, guys. You should be, and one of the things, a little foreshadowing, is that I believe a very strong definition of a man would be all three. Yeah. If you're rounded on all three of those, because I think you should be formidable, as Peterson says. I love how he says formidable, not just strong, but what does that mean? You know, it's like a good man. What does a good man mean? What does a strong man mean? What does it mean to say, am I even a man? And then that's one of the chapters, what is a man? It's a good place to start, especially if you don't know if you are one. We should start with the definition, and as soon as you define it, you'll go, oh, I am a man, so I can relax a bit. Yeah, I don't carry that weight.
Yeah.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
Appreciate you, man. All right, till the next one, God bless each and every one of you. We truly love every one of you. Take care of one another. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again for another episode. Please be sure to follow us and support us on all of the social media. That's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. All of that starts by visiting ableshepherd.com.